Embarrassment and my personal aversion to embarrassment is so fascinating to me. I learned all about embarrassment during my year-long exchange in France in high school. There's just so much room for potential embarrassment when you're in a new culture that you're unfamiliar with and speaking a language that you haven't mastered. This, I think, is one of the biggest, probably the biggest obstacle many people have to learning a foreign language, because you're guaranteed to sound dumb when you don't fully know what you're saying all the time. There's one moment that is burned into my memory in history class in my French high school. We were learning about John F. Kennedy and the assassination that took place. Interestingly, I found that we explored a lot of American history and American culture in my French high school, and it didn't work both ways. Like in my American high school, we didn't talk very much about French history, aside from the French Revolution, perhaps. Anyway, this was a chance for me to gain some points and look smart and knowledgeable in front of my fellow students, because I was the American in the classroom. I'm supposed to know about this stuff. At that stage of my life, I'm 17 years old, I'm jumping at any chance I can get to show that I'm smart, both because I want people to think I'm smart, and also because, there's plenty of stereotypes about Americans not being smart or not being aware of their own history or culture in general, right? So I raise my hand, and the teacher calls on me, and I stand up to speak in front of the class. I remember very specifically not knowing what the word for assassination was in French, but because of the similarities between the two languages, sometimes you can fake it. You can kind of guess, assassination, maybe it's very similar in French. So in front of the class, I'm saying, the assassination of Kennedy, and I say, l'assassination de Kennedy, and as I say those words, the class erupts in laughter. And I have no idea why. I don't know what I've said that's wrong or funny or whatever. And it was only afterwards that I learned that that is not how you say assassination. You say assassinat, which is almost the same thing, but it isn't. It's almost like if I said the assassinate of Kennedy. It's wrong. It's not correct. And maybe the combination of saying that plus my foreign accent was funny to the French. I have no idea. Either way, the important thing about this anecdote is that the entire class, everybody in the room, including the teacher, were laughing at me, or laughing at what I said, but it felt like they were laughing at me. Embarrassment's really interesting because it creates a feeling of self-consciousness, and I felt almost like a shame of myself or of what I had just done, even though obviously it was so innocent and harmless. And especially as I break it down for you, it probably makes perfect sense that I said what I said. But there's a real power. I honestly think it's like a superpower to develop a thick skin to this sort of thing, to be able to face people laughing at you and remain unfazed. Or maybe it does affect you, but you don't let it change your behavior. It's like, okay, people are laughing at me, but that's not going to change anything. I remember feeling so self-conscious about that. Here I am nearly a decade later, and I'm telling you this story. Goes to show you that memory's been burned into my brain, right? Embarrassment feels like a fork in the road, an inflection point. You can go in, let's say, one of two main directions. You can double down, you defend yourself, fight back at the people that are laughing at you, which was 100% an impulse that I felt in that moment. Or you can join them, you can sort of acquiesce, you can allow that laughter to be contagious, to infect you, and laugh at yourself. And that leads to a different kind of scenario, a different kind of dynamic where you're not taking yourself so seriously, right? That second option is much more difficult. It requires more maturity. It's not easy to laugh at yourself, especially when perhaps you're invested in looking a certain way, as I was in that case. I wanted to look smart in front of my classmates. But if you don't develop this muscle, this ability to face the feeling of people laughing at you, it's a force that can kind of invisibly shape you, can control so many of your decisions and actions. And I do find it interesting that Cato, one of the Stoics back in the day, would intentionally wear ridiculous-looking clothing so that the members of the Senate would ridicule him. It's almost like he wanted that to happen. He wanted to develop the ability to take the ridicule so that it doesn't affect him so much. Talk about flipping the script, right? Inviting public embarrassment. Oh my God, that is courageous on another level. It takes balls of steel to be able to do that. And of course, most of us spend most of our lives trying to avoid this exact sort of thing from happening. It goes to show you the things that we avoid aren't always necessarily so bad for us. There's something potentially spiritual about things going intensely wrong and the kinds of new awareness that you can develop out of that. At the end of the day, they are just other people's opinions, right? Those opinions only carry the power that we give to them. Something I try to remind myself in moments where I'm facing disapproval or disappointment from others. Curious to hear what you think about this. If you have your own embarrassing stories to share in the comments, I'll be keeping an eye out for that. And for those of you that are interested, related to the topic of language learning, I do have a course on language learning that helps you bypass these feelings of self-consciousness and get to the point where you can communicate with people as quickly as possible. It's available on sale right now for the next little bit, so I'll leave a link to that in the description below if you're interested in checking it out. A lot of people have taken that course and it has received a tremendously positive response. So yeah, just thought I'd mention it if you want to check it out. And taking that course or any of the courses that I've made is an incredible, probably the best way of supporting my work. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you soon.